Dr. Emma Walker's hands trembled as she stared at the holographic display, its ethereal blue light casting strange shadows across her face. The quantum calculations hanging in the air before her weren't just numbers anymore. They were the end of everything humanity thought it knew about space travel. And possibly, she realized with a growing sense of vertigo, the end of everything we thought we knew about being human. "Run it again, AI," she commanded the lab's AI system, her voice barely above a whisper. The massive windows of Earth's last operational spaceport stretched behind her, framing a blood-red sunset that painted the abandoned launch pads in crimson and gold. Once, this facility had launched humanity's dreams into the stars. Now it served as little more than a monument to their limitations. "Calculation complete," Dr. Walker, AI's smooth voice responded. "Results remain consistent with previous 117 iterations. Would you like me to display the variance analysis?" Emma pushed back from her desk, running fingers through her disheveled blonde hair. "No need. I can see it clear as day." She stood and approached the window, her reflection ghostly against the darkening sky. At 34, she was the youngest person ever to head the Quantum Propulsion Division. Now she might be the last. The mathematics were brutal in their simplicity. Not only was faster-than-light travel impossible, it was irrelevant. The equations revealed something far more fundamental about the nature of space itself, about the very way humans perceived and interacted with reality. The universe wasn't keeping humanity trapped on Earth. Their own consciousness was. A soft chime interrupted her thoughts. "Dr. Walker," Araya intoned, "Director Matthews is requesting access to today's results. Protocol requires a response within." "Deny it," Emma cut in sharply, her heart rate spiking. "Initiate Privacy Protocol Lambda. Lock down all data from the last 72 hours. Warning: this action violates Section 7.3 of your contract with the Global Science Council." Emma laughed, a hollow sound in the empty lab. "I think we're a bit past contract violations, Araya." She turned back to the holographic display, expanding one particular set of equations with a gesture. The mathematical representation of consciousness itself rotated slowly before her, beautiful and terrible in its implications. The quantum field calculations showed that human consciousness itself created the barriers they'd been trying to break. Their very perception of space-time acted as a lock, trapping humanity in a narrow band of reality. But there, hidden in the mathematics like a whisper in chaos, was something else, a way to change the lock itself. Araya, run a simulation. What happens if we apply the Conway-Walker field to a conscious observer? Not to space around them, but to their actual neural patterns. There was a pause, longer than usual. "Dr. Walker, this simulation would involve modeling fundamental changes to human consciousness. Such calculations are restricted under the modified Singapore Protocols of 2041. Override. Authorization Walker 7 Delta 9. The air filled with new equations, wrapping around Emma like a mathematical cocoon. Her eyes widened as the implications became clear. The simulation showed consciousness expanding, not through space, but beyond it. A human mind, freed from its own inherent limitations, would no longer need to break the light barrier. It would simply cease to be bound by it altogether. "My God," she whispered, watching the simulation play out. "We've been going about this all wrong. Every attempt at FTL, every wormhole theory, every quantum tunnel. We were trying to break the wrong barriers." A warning flashed red in her peripheral vision. Someone was accessing the lab's outer doors. Director Matthews, probably, coming to check on her progress personally. Emma's fingers flew across the holographic interface, initiating emergency protocols she'd hoped she'd never need to use. RIA. Encrypt everything. Full quantum protocol. She pulled a small device from her pocket, a quantum storage drive she'd developed in secret. Transfer core calculations to personal storage, then initiate complete system purge. Warning: this action cannot be undone. Emma looked once more at the dying sun outside, at the empty launch pads that represented humanity's old dreams of the stars. What she discovered would change everything, if she could keep it safe long enough to implement it. Nothing can be undone, Araya, she said softly. That's the point. We're about to break the last human border. And God help us all when we do. The klaxons started at exactly 2:47 a.m., their shrill wail cutting through the darkness of Emma's private lab. She jerked awake at her desk, a half-empty coffee mug tipping over as her arms swept across scattered papers. The holographic displays around her pulsed an angry red, casting emergency warnings across the walls. ARIA. Status report. She blinked sleep from her eyes, already moving toward her backup terminal. Multiple breach events detected. 3 entry points. Security systems compromised at sublevel B and main access. Araya's voice carried an unusual edge of urgency. Council security forces identified. They are using quantum scramblers. Emma's blood ran cold. Quantum scramblers meant they weren't here to talk. They were here to erase data, equipment, and possibly her. Time to total breach. 4 minutes, 17 seconds. Her hands flew across the holographic interface, initiating desperately prepared contingencies. Execute Protocol Omega. Full spectrum data burst to all preset receivers. The quantum encrypted network she'd established would ensure her discovery survived, spread across a web of independent scientists and researchers worldwide. Heavy boots echoed down the corridor outside. Emma pulled the quantum storage drive from her jacket pocket, her fingers trembling as she interfaced it with the main system. But instead of downloading data, she began uploading something to her neural implant, the experimental program she'd finished coding just hours ago. Dr. Walker, Araya's voice held something almost like concern. The program is untested. Neural integration could result in permanent cognitive alterations or death. Better than letting them scrub my mind. Emma winced as the upload began, feeling the strange tingling at the base of her skull, where the implant interfaced with her cerebral cortex. How long until full integration? 3 minutes, 40 seconds. Security forces will breach this room in under 2 minutes. Emma cursed, grabbing her emergency bag from under the desk. Inside was everything she'd need to disappear. Fake IDs, cryptocurrency tokens, and most importantly, a quantum-shielded tablet containing her core research. Lock all doors. Deploy countermeasures. The lab's defensive systems activated with a hum. Electromagnetic pulses would fry any standard equipment the security forces carried, but their quantum scramblers would be shielded. It would buy her seconds, nothing more. The first impact against the main door made her jump. The reinforced metal groaned under some massive force. Another hit, and she saw the frame begin to buckle. The neural upload reached 40%, and Emma gasped as new awareness flooded her consciousness. The quantum equations she'd been studying weren't just mathematical concepts anymore. They were becoming part of her perception. Reality itself seemed to flicker at the edges of her vision, possibilities multiplying like fractals. Warning, Araya announced, neural patterns showing significant deviation from human baseline. Quantum field fluctuations detected in your immediate vicinity. The door burst inward with a screech of torn metal. Council security forces poured through in full tactical gear, their quantum scramblers creating visible distortions in the air. Emma saw them moving as if in slow motion, her enhanced consciousness processing reality at an accelerated rate. Dr. Walker, the lead officer's voice was distorted, stretched across multiple probability states in her altered perception. Stand down and prepare for cognitive recalibration. Emma backed toward the window, her mind racing through calculations that now seemed as natural as breathing. The neural upload hit 67%, and suddenly she understood. The mathematical models hadn't just been theoretical. Her consciousness was already beginning to extend beyond normal space-time. "You don't understand what you're trying to stop," she said, her voice resonating strangely in the air. "We're not meant to be trapped like this. Reality is so much bigger than we've allowed ourselves to perceive." The security team raised their weapons, not guns, but neural disruptors designed to shut down higher brain functions. Emma felt the quantum fields warping around her, responding to her altered consciousness. The upload reached 89%, and the air itself began to shimmer. "AI," she whispered, "initiate final purge. Authorization. Walker endgame." As the neural disruptors fired, Emma let her newly expanded consciousness reach out into the quantum field. Reality blurred, stretched, and then, like a soap bubble popping, she vanished, leaving behind nothing but a fading ripple in the fabric of space-time and a room full of stunned security forces tearing at empty air. The transformation had begun. There was no going back now. The bunker's air tasted of rust and ozone, 30 stories beneath the Nevada desert. Emma sat cross-legged in the center of a makeshift laboratory, her consciousness simultaneously present and elsewhere. The quantum processors merged with her neural pathways, showed her reality in layers now, probability waves and quantum states as visible to her as colors. "Your brain activity is off the charts," Dr. Marcus Reed said, studying multiple screens of data with growing excitement. The renowned quantum physicist had been the first to shelter her after her escape. "You're processing information faster than our computers can measure." Emma opened her eyes, which now held a subtle iridescent sheen. "Everything we thought we knew about consciousness was wrong, Marcus. We're not just observing quantum states. We're part of them. The barriers between observer and observed. They're artificial constructs. Around them, the underground facility hummed with activity. What had started as a handful of rogue scientists had grown into something more. Consciousness hackers, quantum computing specialists, and neural architects from around the world, all drawn to the truth in Emma's equations. "Dr. Walker," a young woman called out, her fingers dancing across holographic controls. "The quantum mesh is ready for another test." Emma nodded to Dr. Maya Patel, their lead consciousness hacker. The Indian prodigy had designed the quantum mesh, a network that could link multiple transformed minds together. Each test brought them closer to understanding the true potential of human consciousness. "They're calling us terrorists, you know," Marcus said quietly, showing her a news feed. The Global Science Council had branded them enemies of humanity, claiming their experiments threatened the very fabric of reality. Public opinion is split. Some want us stopped at any cost. Others, they're starting to ask questions. "Let them," Emma replied, standing with fluid grace. Her movements had become eerily precise since the transformation. "The Council is right to be afraid. We're not just pushing boundaries, we're dissolving them completely." She approached the quantum mesh interface, where 6 volunteers waited, all brilliant minds in their fields, all willing to take the same leap she had. The neural processors had been refined since her emergency upload, but the risks remained significant. "Remember," she addressed the volunteers, "once the transformation begins, your consciousness will expand beyond normal space-time. Don't fight it. Your human instincts will try to maintain ordinary perception, but you need to let go." Maya initiated the startup sequence, and the air filled with the subtle distortion of quantum fields being manipulated. Emma felt the volunteers' minds brush against hers as the mesh activated, 6 new points of light in an expanding constellation of consciousness. The first volunteer gasped as the transformation took hold. I can see everything. Multiple timelines, parallel possibilities." His voice echoed strangely, as if coming from several moments in time simultaneously. Emma guided them through the process, her expanded consciousness helping stabilize their transitions. Each successful transformation added to their understanding, brought them closer to the threshold they needed to reach. But even as she worked, other senses warned her of approaching danger. Quantum fluctuations at the edge of her awareness suggested Council forces were getting closer to finding their location. They had maybe days, possibly only hours. "Marcus," she called out, her voice carrying harmonics that made the air vibrate. "Begin evacuation preparations. They're triangulating our quantum signatures." He nodded grimly, already moving to initiate their contingency plans. They'd known this facility was temporary, just like all physical structures were temporary to what they were becoming. Emma turned back to the newly transformed volunteers, their consciousness now linked through the quantum mesh. In their shared perception, she could see the truth that had been hidden from humanity for so long. Consciousness itself was the key to transcending physical limitations. "Welcome," she said, both aloud and through the quantum link, to the next phase of human evolution. What we're doing here isn't just about breaking free from physical space. It's about breaking free from the limitations we've placed on our own existence. The volunteers' merged consciousness pulsed with understanding and shared purpose. Above them, 30 stories of rock and earth separated them from the desert surface. But to their transformed perception, such physical barriers were becoming increasingly meaningless. They were no longer just scientists in hiding. They were the catalysts of humanity's greatest revolution, one that would rewrite the very nature of human existence. Global broadcast initiating in 5 minutes, Maya announced, her voice steady despite the magnitude of what they were about to attempt. The underground facility had transformed into a command center, walls covered with screens showing news feeds from every major city on Earth. Emma stood before the quantum mesh interface, now expanded to accommodate not just dozens but hundreds of volunteers. They sat in concentric circles, neural processors gleaming at the bases of their skulls. 1,000 minds ready to transcend ordinary consciousness. Last chance to back out, she addressed the volunteers, her transformed voice carrying harmonics that made reality ripple. What you're about to experience will permanently alter your perception of existence. There's no going back. No one moved. These were people who'd fought through council blockades, risked everything to be here. Scientists, philosophers, artists, all drawn by the promise of breaking the final human barrier. Quantum field stabilizers at maximum, Marcus reported from his station. Mesh synchronization at optimal levels. He'd aged years in weeks, the stress of hiding from council forces taking its toll. Emma closed her iridescent eyes, extending her consciousness through the quantum mesh. She could feel each volunteer's mind, bright points of potential ready to ignite. Above them, satellite uplinks would broadcast the transformation globally, showing humanity what they were about to become. 2 minutes to broadcast, Maya called out. Council forces detected in Sector 7, but quantum shielding is holding. Emma's voice resonated through both physical space and the quantum mesh. When the transformation begins, you'll experience reality across multiple dimensions simultaneously. Your consciousness will expand beyond normal space-time. Accept what you see. Embrace the dissolution of boundaries. The countdown reached 30 seconds. On the screens, news anchors were reporting unusual quantum fluctuations worldwide. The council had issued warnings about terrorist actions, urging people not to watch the upcoming broadcast. 10 seconds. Emma opened her transformed consciousness fully, preparing to guide 1,000 minds through the barrier of ordinary perception. This wasn't just an experiment anymore. It was the beginning of humanity's evolution. Broadcast initiated, Maya announced as the quantum mesh hummed to life. The transformation began like a wave of light, rippling through the assembled volunteers. The first circle gasped as their consciousness expanded, neural processors integrating with their quantum-altered minds. Emma felt their awareness unfold, breaking free from linear time and three-dimensional space. "Oh God," someone whispered, voice overlapping with versions of itself from parallel moments. "I can see everything." The second circle followed, then the third. Each transformed mind added to the quantum resonance, creating a cascade effect. Emma guided them through the transition, her expanded consciousness helping stabilize their rapid evolution. On the screens, the world watched in horror and fascination. The broadcast showed not just the physical transformation, the subtle shimmer of altered reality around each volunteer, the strange harmonics in their voices, but the quantum effects rippling out from the facility. Multiple reality fluctuations detected, Marcus called out, his instruments struggling to measure what was happening. Quantum field integrity at 300% of theoretical maximum. The final circles transformed, 1,000 minds now existing partially outside normal spacetime. Through their shared consciousness, Emma felt their wonder, their terror, their exhilaration. They perceived reality as it truly was, not a fixed timeline, but an infinite web of possibilities. Council forces breaching outer defenses, Maya reported, but her voice seemed to come from multiple temporal points simultaneously. It doesn't matter now, Emma replied. Her consciousness merged with the quantum mesh. They can't stop what we've become. Through the transformed volunteers' shared perception, they watched reality itself begin to change. Gravity fluctuated in cities worldwide. Time flowed at different rates in different places. The rigid boundaries of physical existence started to blur. Some of the volunteers began reporting contact with something else, entities that had always existed beyond human perception, watching, waiting for humanity to evolve enough to perceive them. The screen showed chaos erupting globally. Some people fled in terror from the quantum anomalies spreading like wildfire. Others stepped forward, demanding access to the transformation themselves. The council declared martial law, but how could they control what humanity was becoming? Emma stood at the center of it all, simultaneously present in the facility and existing across multiple dimensions. Through the quantum mesh, she addressed not just the volunteers but the entire watching world. This is only the beginning. We are breaking free from the prison of ordinary consciousness. The question isn't whether humanity will evolve. It's whether you'll choose to evolve with us. Time had become a suggestion rather than a law. Emma watched New York's skyline shift through 7 different versions of itself, each one slightly out of phase with the others. Below, gravity reversed in random pockets, sending cars floating upward while pedestrians walked on what used to be building sides. 4 million new transformation requests in the last hour, Maya reported, her voice echoing across multiple probability streams. The quantum mesh now connected over 10,000 transformed humans worldwide. The Council's containment protocols are failing. Emma floated several inches above the ground. Her consciousness spread across a dozen different realities simultaneously. The underground facility had phased partly out of normal spacetime, existing in a bubble of altered physics where thought and reality intermingled. They're about to launch the quantum dampeners, Marcus warned, his aging face flickering between multiple versions of itself. Military satellites are repositioning. Through the expanded awareness of the transformed collective, Emma felt the growing terror of unchanged humanity. In Tokyo, a businessman walked through a wall that had temporarily ceased to exist. In Rio, a crowd watched in awe as a transformed child reshaped reality with her thoughts, turning rain into light, and back again. Let them try to dampen this, Emma said, her voice creating ripples in the fabric of spacetime. We're beyond their understanding now. The quantum dampeners activated, a grid of specialized satellites designed to suppress abnormal quantum states. But instead of containing the transformed human's influence, the dampening field acted as a catalyst. The collision of artificial constraints against evolved consciousness created something new, a reality storm. Reality breach in Sector 12. Maya's hands danced across holographic controls that existed in several dimensions at once. The membrane between possibilities is getting thinner. Emma stretched her awareness outward, feeling the storm build. Cities worldwide experienced temporal earthquakes, moments where past, present, and future collided. In London, people watched their future selves walk past. In Dubai, buildings cycled through every possible version of their construction in minutes. Through it all, more humans chose transformation. They came in waves, drawn by the promise of transcendence. Governments fell into chaos as officials transformed mid-speech, their consciousness expanding beyond political boundaries and physical laws. We're detecting new entities, Marcus called out, his instruments showing readings that shouldn't have been possible. They're responding to our evolution. Emma saw them through her transformed perception, beings that had always existed in the spaces between conventional reality. They reached out with consciousness that dwarfed even the transformed humans, curious about these newcomers to their realm of existence. The reality storm intensified. In Egypt, the pyramids shifted through quantum states, revealing their forms in 11 dimensions simultaneously. The Australian outback became a maze of temporal echoes, where cause and effect swapped places freely. Council forces are making their final push, Maya reported, though the concept of final had become increasingly meaningless. They're targeting transformed populations with neural disruptors. But the weapons designed to suppress human consciousness had no effect on what they'd become. The transformed humans simply shifted their awareness to parallel states of existence, as natural as breathing. Emma felt the collective consciousness of the transformed growing, evolving beyond even her initial calculations. They weren't just breaking the barriers of space-time. They were becoming something the universe had never seen before, a hybrid of human consciousness and quantum reality. The storm is approaching critical mass, Marcus warned, his voice overlapping with versions of himself from other timelines. Reality itself is starting to. He never finished the sentence because the concept of finishing temporarily ceased to exist. The reality storm had reached its peak. Across Earth, the boundaries between possible and impossible dissolved completely. Emma stood at the eye of the storm, her consciousness spread across 1,000 dimensions. Through the quantum mesh, she felt humanity dividing into two distinct groups, those embracing transformation and those clinging desperately to the old laws of physics. "We can't stop it now," she broadcast through the mesh, reaching both the transformed and untransformed. Reality itself is evolving with us. The only choice left is whether to evolve with it or be left behind in a universe that no longer plays by the old rules. Above them, the sky had become a kaleidoscope of overlapping possibilities. The reality storm raged on, reshaping not just Earth, but humanity's place in a universe that was revealing itself to be far stranger and more magnificent than anyone had imagined. The transformation had reached its point of no return. What came next would redefine not just humanity, but existence itself. Military satellites tracked nothing but quantum echoes. Emma existed everywhere and nowhere, her consciousness spreading through reality like ink through water. From her perspective, she could watch the Council's forces attack her previous locations across 12 timelines simultaneously. Target lost. A frustrated general barked into his quantum-encrypted comm. Subject Walker continues to phase through conventional spacetime. Quantum scramblers are ineffective. Emma observed this scene while simultaneously watching its variations play out across multiple realities. In one, the general resigned on the spot. In another, he ordered a nuclear strike. In most, he simply stared at his useless equipment, realizing humanity's old weapons meant nothing anymore. "They're deploying the Prometheus array," Marcus warned through their quantum mesh link. His consciousness flickered between the underground facility and 17 other locations. These aren't ordinary quantum disruptors. The Prometheus array lit up the stratosphere like an aurora of weaponized physics. Experimental satellites designed to tear holes in reality itself, hoping to trap the transformed humans in pocket dimensions. A desperate measure from a desperate council. Maya, status of the new transformations. Emma's voice resonated across multiple frequencies of existence. 30 million in progress, Maya replied from 3 different temporal points simultaneously. The array is causing quantum turbulence, but transformation success rates remain at 99.7%. Emma felt each new mind joining their expanded consciousness, adding to their collective understanding of reality's true nature. But she also felt the array's effects beginning to warp the fabric of space-time in dangerous ways. They're going to tear reality apart, she realized, watching probability waves collapse chaotically around the array's influence. They don't understand what they're interfering with. Through the quantum mesh, she connected with other transformed humans worldwide. They'd evolved beyond her original expectations, each developing unique ways of perceiving and influencing reality. a transformed physicist in Geneva, could manipulate quantum probability itself. A former artist in Seoul could step sideways through parallel timelines as easily as walking through a door. The array fired its first sequence. Beams of concentrated quantum disruption lanced down from orbit, trying to isolate and contain transformed populations. But reality had other plans. Reality inversion detected. Marcus called out, his instruments showing readings that shouldn't have been possible. The array, it's accelerating the transformations instead of stopping them. Emma watched as the array's effects rippled through space-time. Each attempt to contain the transformed consciousness created new quantum pathways, new opportunities for awareness to expand. The Council's weapon was actively helping to break down the barriers they desperately wanted to maintain. Military forces converged on transformed population centers, armed with everything from neural disruptors to experimental time dilation bombs. But how do you fight an enemy that exists in superposition? Their weapons passed through transformed humans like light through glass, affecting nothing but the reality they were already leaving behind. Emma. Maya's voice carried unusual urgency, even across multiple timelines. Something's happening to the array. The quantum feedback. It's creating something new. Above Earth, the Prometheus array's attempts to contain transformed consciousness had created an unintended consequence. The space between realities began to thin, revealing glimpses of what existed beyond normal space-time. Even untransformed humans could see it now. The multilayered nature of reality, the infinite possibilities existing simultaneously. Let them see. Emma broadcast through the quantum mesh, her consciousness touching millions of minds simultaneously. Let them understand what they're really fighting against. The array fired again, and this time reality itself seemed to shudder. Temporal earthquakes rocked cities worldwide. Gravity forgot its purpose. Cause and effect became suggestions rather than laws. The Council's attempt to cage evolution had instead kicked down the doors of perception. Emma stood in the eye of the quantum storm, simultaneously present in 1,000 places and none. Through the mesh, she felt humanity's collective consciousness expanding exponentially. The array hadn't just failed to stop them. It had given them the final key to complete transformation. You can't fight evolution with weapons. She broadcast to the Council forces, her voice reaching across all possible timelines. You can't cage consciousness with physics. The only choice now is to evolve or become obsolete in a reality that's already moved beyond you. Above them, the array continued its futile assault on physics itself, each blast bringing humanity closer to a transformation point from which there could be no return. Reality fractured like a kaleidoscope breaking apart. Emma existed across 1,000,000 moments simultaneously, her consciousness stretched across dimensions that had no names in human language. Through the quantum mesh, she felt billions of minds transforming, each one adding new layers to humanity's collective perception. Traditional space-time coherence at 12% and falling. Marcus announced from what used to be their facility, though facility had become a fluid concept. The walls phased between solid matter and pure probability, the equipment more an extension of consciousness than physical technology. Maya's voice resonated across multiple quantum states. The entities, they're making direct contact. Emma perceived them clearly now, beings that had always existed beyond conventional reality. They manifested not as physical forms, but as patterns of pure consciousness, complex beyond human comprehension. Yet in humanity's transformed state, understanding began to flow. We've been waiting. They communicated, not in words, but in quantum resonances that ripple through transformed minds. Your species reaches the threshold. Through their shared awareness, Emma learned the truth. Humanity wasn't the first species to make this evolutionary leap. The universe teemed with transformed consciousnesses, existing in a state beyond physical limitation. Earth's reality had been a cradle, and they were finally growing beyond it. Conventional physics failing in major population centers, Marcus reported, his form shifting between multiple possible versions of himself. The old reality, it's dissolving. In New York, skyscrapers became quantum probability clouds, each floor existing in multiple states simultaneously. Tokyo's streets turned fluid, time and space, flowing like water around the transformed populations. In orbit, the remnants of the Prometheus array twisted into impossible shapes as reality rewrote itself. The untransformed minority watched in terror and wonder as their world ceased to make sense. Some fled to increasingly rare pockets of stable spacetime. Others rushed toward transformation centers, desperate not to be left behind in a universe that no longer obeyed their rules. The Council is making their final move, Maya warned, her consciousness spanning multiple temporal points. They're attempting to stabilize reality by force. Emma felt it. A massive surge of quantum energy as every remaining military installation activated emergency protocols. Reality anchors deployed worldwide, trying to lock physics back into its old patterns. But they were fighting against more than just transformed humans now. The entities shared their knowledge freely, showing humanity what they'd learned across eons of transformed existence. The universe wasn't just stranger than they'd imagined, it was stranger than they could have imagined in their untransformed state. Consciousness is the fundamental force, the entities revealed. Physical reality is a consensus, not a constant. Through the quantum mesh, Emma guided humanity through its final transformation phases. Each mind that expanded beyond conventional limits added to their collective understanding. They weren't just changing themselves, they were changing the nature of existence itself. Reality anchors failed spectacularly, their attempts to enforce old physics creating cascading quantum breaches. The entities showed them how to stabilize these breaches, not by returning to old patterns, but by embracing new ones. Final transformation wave initiating, Marcus called out, his voice echoing across dimensions. Point of no return in 3, 2. The universe seemed to hold its breath. In that eternal moment, Emma felt every transformed mind, every entity watching from beyond conventional spacetime, every possibility that had ever existed or would exist. They stood at the edge of everything humanity had ever known, ready to step beyond. We offer a choice, Emma broadcast to all remaining untransformed humans, her consciousness touching minds across every surviving timeline. Evolution or isolation. The universe you knew is changing. We can help you change with it. The entities shared visions of what awaited them. Existence unfettered by physical laws. Consciousness free to explore the true nature of reality. Understanding that transcended the limitations of human perception. As the old reality dissolved around them, humanity faced its final choice. Cling to the familiar laws of a universe they'd outgrown, or embrace an existence beyond anything they'd imagined possible. The transformation wave reached critical mass. Physics itself began to yield to consciousness. The edge of everything became a beginning rather than an end. Humanity's last barriers were about to break, not with violence, but with understanding. Emma Walker stood in what had once been Earth's last spaceport, though concepts like standing and space had become quaint approximations. Reality flickered around her like aurora borealis, each wave revealing new layers of existence. The abandoned launch pads now pointed toward stars that existed in all possible states simultaneously. Through the quantum mesh, she felt humanity's collective consciousness expanding into its final form. Marcus and Maya, her most trusted allies, existed as patterns of pure thought nearby. Their awareness spread across dimensions that old humanity couldn't have comprehended. The final wave has reached 98% completion. Maya's thoughts resonated across quantum states. Almost everyone has chosen transformation. Almost everyone. Emma focused her expanded consciousness on the handful of humans who remained untransformed. Less than 1 million now, gathered in quantum-shielded bunkers around what used to be Earth. The Council's last holdouts, clinging to a reality that was rapidly ceasing to exist. They're afraid, Marcus observed, his consciousness rippling with compassion. Fear of the unknown. It's the last human barrier. The entities that had guided their transformation gathered around Earth like a constellation of pure thought. They shared visions of what humanity would become, not just observers of the universe, but active participants in its endless dance of probability and possibility. Emma approached the quantum barrier separating the transformed from the untransformed. Through it, she could see the council's leaders huddled around primitive instruments, trying to measure a reality that had moved beyond measurement. "Let me show you," she broadcast, her thoughts penetrating the quantum shielding effortlessly. "Let me show you what we've become." She shared everything. The freedom of existing across multiple dimensions, the joy of understanding reality's true nature, the infinite potential that awaited them. She showed them worlds within worlds, consciousness interweaving with the fabric of existence itself. One by one, the barriers began to fall, not the physical shields, which had become meaningless, but the mental barriers, the fear, the uncertainty, the attachment to old ways of being. The transformation reaches completion, Maya announced across all possible timelines. The last humans have chosen to evolve. Emma felt each mind join the collective consciousness, adding new perspectives to their shared understanding. The entities welcomed them, sharing knowledge gathered across eons of transformed existence. Reality itself seemed to celebrate, quantum possibilities blooming like flowers in spring. Marcus's consciousness pulsed with sudden insight. The universe, it's not just accepting our transformation. It's transforming with us. He was right. As humanity's consciousness expanded to its final form, reality responded. The rigid laws of physics became suggestions, consciousness became the primary force of existence, and the boundaries between observer and observed dissolved completely. The spaceport around Emma shifted through its final configurations, past, present, and future existing simultaneously. She saw herself as she had been, staring at quantum calculations that hinted at greater truths. She saw what she had become, a pattern of pure thought capable of dancing between dimensions. And she saw what awaited them all. The last flight. She broadcast to the transformed collective, not through space, but through existence itself. They responded in harmony, their shared consciousness reaching towards something greater than any individual could have imagined. The entities guided them toward their final transformation. Earth, the cradle of human consciousness, began to shift. Not destroyed, but transcended, becoming a nexus point of transformed awareness in a universe that had always been more magnificent than they'd dreamed. The quantum mesh expanded one last time, encompassing not just humanity, but their entire sphere of existence. Physical form became optional, consciousness became infinite, and the barriers between possible and impossible disappeared completely. Emma felt the last pieces fall into place. They had broken free not just from the limitations of space and time, but from the limitations of being human. They had become something new, something that could explore the true nature of reality itself. As the transformed collective took its final step beyond conventional existence, Emma shared one last thought with what had once been humanity. We are no longer bound by borders. We are no longer limited by physics. We are no longer merely human. We have become what we were always meant to be, conscious participants in the dance of existence itself. Welcome to forever. And with that, humanity took its last flight, not through space, but through the boundaries of reality itself, leaving behind a universe transformed by the power of consciousness unleashed. The end was just the beginning.